This is another Community Connections with Ryan Sauers. Super excited to have my friend and colleague, principal of Trickum Middle School, my namesake, Ryan Queen, with me today. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Well, you got to, we were talking a little bit before on air, and you got to have a little bit of break, even though we're in digital learning right now, of spring break, which all our students in Gwinnett and faculty much deserved, and got a little, got your hands dirty in the yard. So as long as you can still move your bag, that's a good thing.
Yeah, we're still good. Of course, today's the first day back after spring break, and we're all moving a little slow, it being the first day back at work, but nevertheless, we are back. We're ready to go and ready to finish strong, as we like to say.
Well, we are, and you do a phenomenal job in leadership, and you and I have talked leadership, but I want to start there because we were just mentioning this before we went on air. I was talking about business, you're talking about education, you're talking about being one of the only people if the only person in the building, which is surreal, probably. We're watching every business owner or mayor I talk to says, we don't know what the next hour is going to be, much less, and everybody's encouraging and positive. We're all going to get through this. I mean, that's a given. But, you said something is situational leadership. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. Because somebody says, well, what do we do next? And beyond doing the next right thing next, there is no blueprint, right?
Absolutely. Definitely no blueprint for what's going on right now. This is not anything anybody put together as a what if. Not even an emergency plan has this built into it. But I think it is very indicative of life today. But in my world, in the world of education and working with young people and working with teachers and administrators, it's all about adjusting. And I think the community here has adjusted very well. I know our teachers have adjusted amazingly well. And many of our students are on all just fine. And no, we don't have answers to the millions of questions that are out there. There are way more questions than there are answers. But what we do know is that we're adjusting to the environment. As you mentioned, as we talked before off air, it's all about situational leadership. Situational leadership for myself, for my leadership team, my administrators, but also situational leadership for my teachers. They're experiencing new things on a daily basis, and it's how do we respond to that? And then how do we look forward to tomorrow to try and prevent that from happening or make it a little bit better for that student experience for tomorrow? So there's certainly no blueprint for it, but I've been absolutely amazed at just how well we've all adjusted. I was joking with somebody over spring break that, in the world of education, not just Gwinnett County Public Schools, but education statewide, nationally, in a lot of our districts that have the capability for digital learning, we changed the way in which we teach literally over a weekend. We last had school on March 12th. There was a planned holiday on the 13th. And on that Monday, the 16th, we were learning full-time digitally and have been for 2+ weeks now. There is no roadmap for it. There is no how-to manual for it, but yet our teachers adjusted literally on the fly and began teaching online full-time, not temporarily, but full-time with nothing but a 3-day notice, essentially.
Yeah, and I was sharing, my wife is dipped her toe. She'll be taking that what LSTCs or LS. Okay,
Right.
I think I can remember that by now. But me in school acronyms. There's too many of them. but yeah, so she's been working with the person who's retiring after this year, but they've been working their hearts out helping the teachers. But I've been really impressed with the teachers. Weekend nights, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Texting, making sure they're going there for their students. And this wasn't like, hey, we got a 6-month, 9-month ramp up period with training sessions. It's pretty impressive, and I think you would agree. You're one of the most forward leaders and thinking visionary I know. This is a good thing, I think, for the long term of learning. Because you and I have always talked about, we don't know how learning is going to look. but,
Mhm.
just doing what we've always done is not necessarily the plan. So, if this gives us opportunities that could potentially make learning better, not just here, anywhere in the future. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, certain things stand true regardless of the delivery model. Our standards, our curriculum, our expectations of what we want our kids to learn have been the rock solid that we continue to build our lessons on, whether those lessons are in person, whether those lessons are blended, which is how we've used the digital environment in prior years, or now how they're completely in a digital environment. The content remains the same, the standards remain the same. What changes or what is adjusted is the delivery. But uses of things like Zoom and Google Meeting. I was joking with a colleague not terribly long ago about how many of us in our generation kind of knock the social media world and get frustrated by the way in which kids utilize and rely on the social media world. Well, here's the irony of it is we are now using social media for our human interaction.
Right.
This is how we are getting that human interaction with both our colleagues, both our teachers, as well as our students, is we're getting it through this social media, through these digital tools.
It just
And it's
makes you wish we
definitely,
had, well, it makes you wish we would have bought some Zoom stock.
or Google stock.
Or
We're
Google
using
stock.
Google Meet quite a bit. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I have my first faculty meeting scheduled for this coming Friday, and we're going to do it via Google Meet because Google Meet will now host up to 250 participants at a time. And
Really?
just a couple weeks ago, they wouldn't host more than like 50 or 100. I can't remember what it was, but just a couple weeks ago, we really didn't have an answer for a digital faculty meeting. Well, we do now, and it's only been 2 weeks in the environment. We're going to have a digital faculty meeting on Friday.
Well, and Ryan, where I'm going with this is, there's nothing, me, there's nothing like the face to face. I mean, for kids, for teachers, for business people, this is about, you and I were talking before we went on air, just catching up as friends. But where I think it's going to give, it's going to allow teaching to be done where you can add supplemental things, on top of the traditional experience. When I'm working on my doctorate, we're able to kind of mix and match, in person and, things you do online. And I
Mhm.
think it'll give teachers, in time, even more in their arsenal to offer. And I think students will say, hey, this is kind of the new norm. Again, you're still going to go to school. I'm not saying, so
Mhm.
you can't replace that. I mean, maybe 20,
No.
30, 40 years, maybe it's different. But I still believe there's always going to be a hybrid component, because I know even online courses I've taught or online classes I've taken, sometimes they're harder actually,
Mhm.
because the
Mhm.
professor, the teacher, I want to make sure you're doing enough work. So, you can't read body language as well. But where I was going, and I want to throw this back to you, meetings as we know them. So, for example, when I missed a school council meeting, when I was on something, would be cool if you could log in through Zoom or Google Meets and say,
Mhm.
hey, I can't get up there, but I can listen to you guys. And these are ways I think we'll think a little differently. Not going to replace face to face, but maybe, once in a while there's a virtual meeting if people's calendars are full. And if it works well, I'll be curious to see how this goes. It could just make us think a little differently. And I know you and I are big on that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's definitely opened our eyes to a lot of different things. I agree that no, we need school. We need as human beings, we need social interaction, and granted, our standards and our curriculum is the basis for why we're here. But it is also that community sense, that community feel that we get only through that face to face and only through that live interaction. But certainly, in trying to maintain some sense of normalcy and maintain that environment that we create every day here in the school, we've definitely all of us have learned how to better utilize some digital tools that are out there that can allow us to maintain some of this community involvement. We're continuing through a planning process. You may remember that I host community events for our rising fifth grade parents at our local elementary schools. Well, we're going through with a plan. We're trying to get it out there. Hopefully, we'll have it published later this week, of some virtual meetings for some rising fifth grade parents. So still trying to do some of those community connections, but understand in the world that we're in right now and the timing that we're in, that we have to do them a little differently. And utilizing the digital tools are great options. Now, to your point, when we get back to a sense of normalcy, do we blend these two things moving forward? I think that's a great question, and definitely a great option for some of us leaders that are experiencing these things for the first time. Is how do we learn from that and blend them as we go, back to the way in which we used to do things before? Do we really go back, or
Right.
is it kind of a new
Normal.
normal moving forward, which is more of a blend of these tools as well as the way in which we like to do things?
Yeah, I think just even in my doctoral cohort, a few of them are principals, and talking to you and other leaders. Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be things we're just going to go, hey, we've always done it this way, but hey, it may make sense. I'm making something, if everybody can't be at the PTA, council meeting, that we can Zoom them in or Google meeting in, and maybe every other one's in person because people are busy and we get more people to show up that way. And it's a small example because I love the face-to-face interaction, but when we do get back to our busy, slam drowning world, which now we're all kind of longing for, but for years I wanted us to take a deep break, and then now I'm going, wow, it is like, it's, everyone uses the word unprecedented, nothing like this. And that's to your point. There is been nothing like this. I mean, if it was 100-something years ago, and no one had these tools like we're using now.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
and so, we're all looking at it from different sectors, different spheres. But the biggest thing I would say, and I think you agree with this, I've talked to some elected officials. I've talked to different, your first principal I've spoken to, but we don't have to wait for the government or the county government, the state or federal, to tell us everything to do. I mean, in other words, if a neighbor elderly needs groceries, we can just do the right thing and don't have to
Mhm.
be told to do that, right? I mean, I think people are waiting sometimes to, can we move? Can we do this? Sometimes it's okay to just lead, and
Absolutely.
keep your 6 feet away, but do the right thing.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I've been so impressed with our teaching staff and so impressed with our community over these last few weeks, is I felt like that's exactly what we've done. Initially blended learning and these access to digital learning were really there for the snow day, for the what if, for the temporary, hey, we need to continue school, but we know it's only going to be a day or two, maybe 5 days at max. To all of a sudden the mind shift of, this is school for the foreseeable future. So we can't just put up PowerPoints and PDFs and expect the kids to still be engaged. No, we have to create high quality, engaging lessons that keep the kids involved in what we're doing and learning of new material. Well, part of that is the engagement. Part of that is what you and I are doing here, engaging through a live session where we can see each other. And the number of teachers that have jumped on these platforms of Google Meet or Zoom or any of those things for that live interaction has been awesome. And I think one of the side things from it is, I think the kids have really enjoyed getting onto these environments because they get to interact like kids with
Yeah.
other kids.
Yeah.
And no, they're not physically sitting in the classroom, but they're sort of getting that same sense and feeding off of each other and asking questions, and that group brainstorm that occurs in a normal classroom environment. I think our teachers have essentially figured that out with no manual. Nobody told them this is how we're going to continue to do it. They just said, ooh, look at this new digital tool. Let me go see what this does. Let me go see what this does. And then they share and they collaborate, and everybody jumps on board, and we grow from there, just like we do with really any new idea.
Yeah, and I think that's what, most teachers, they go into it because it's a passion. You love, it's what I want to do long term, is teach a different level, but I want to teach. But you get thrown a challenge. You care about those kids, and you're like, all right, how can I do the best job I can? And we talk about all our great doctors and nurses, whatever, and this first responders, but also our educators and our students. And I'm not talking, we're in Gwinnett County, Georgia, great school system, one of the best in the country. But everywhere. This, for the most part, this is occurring, and we're learning new
Mhm.
things. And I think we'll go another minute or two here, but I think it's important if you're listening to this from wherever. This is how learning and growth occurs. I know you and Ryan, you and I have talked about this a million times, but stepping out of that box of comfort, being clear in what intentional, like you were saying before, what you're trying to communicate. Um, and in your case, since I've been so involved with a number of things we've worked on together, you've been very intentional and deliberate and purposeful, and not just you, your whole team. I've sat in on things. So they didn't have this. I mean, I can say this for you. You weren't prepared for this, but you were prepared. Everybody was on the same page for learning and making sure the student
Mhm.
was the focus,
Right.
not minutia. And that's why such leaders, and I wanted to hear from you, you can't prepare for XYZ when XYZ it wasn't even on the radar screen, but you do react and
Right.
adapt for XYZ.
Well, a lot of the stuff that is out there about knowing your why, I think this is a perfect example of when you know your why and you express that why. We like to call it our mission statement, and focusing on the mission of ensuring learning for all. If that remains your mission and that's what you do on an everyday basis, the what and the how, it may change from day to day. It may change from year to year, or it may change dramatically like it did in this particular case. The how certainly changed immediately, but the why remains our focus. And as long as we continue to focus on that why, the what and how will continue to change as times do.
Well, as we close, I want to. I know you're making time out of your day, and one of the, if not few people in your building, so that's no weird experience for you. And I'm holed up in my basement facilities, and this has become the new norm of talking to people, the new face-to-face norm. But we will get to the other side. And I think as we close,
Yeah.
You're a strong leader. There's people out there that are watching. This is not just students and educators. They're just saying, is this ever going to end? Is life ever going to go back to normal? I'm frustrated. I'm depressed. So this is, and we all feel that way a little bit. It's just human up. We're emotions. We're human beings. But I keep telling people, if we go shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, unite together. I watched some country music awards last night where country artists were playing, out of their homes. We go in with that kind of
Mhm.
spirit. I'm hoping we reset back as a country to not putting these petty things aside and remember, we're all flesh and blood first. On these stupid, partisan divides of whatever a person believes, and I'm hopeful we'll get to the other side and go, man, we missed friends and colleagues and be able to go grab lunch or. So when you and I do lunch next time, it won't be through Zoom.
I hear you.
but
I
but
hear you. No, it is a great time for all the good. It is a great time to highlight all the good that is going on, whether it's all the school systems out there, including GCPS, that have maintained serving lunch to our most needy kids. I mean, the endeavors that overnight these plans were putting together about how are we going to continue to feed kids, because we know that so many kids rely on their daily school breakfast and lunch just to get by. But not just in the education world, but in the business world. I mean, I've seen a lot of public postings and a lot of promotions about support your local businesses, and take out Tuesdays, and support that mom and pop restaurant that is struggling right now, that is only able to open 3 and 4 days a week. It's great now. We just need it to continue, because we will get back to normal. We know that things will pass, the curve will flatten, life will get back. As with all experiences, we just hope that we all learn from it. We become better people because of it, and we can move forward, as you said, shoulder to shoulder and arm to arm. And things are good out there. There is a lot of good out there.
there's a lot of good
We
out there.
just need to continue focusing on it.
Well, that's what we're working on, and for the magazine is part of my living, what I do. I'm just determined to continue to focus on this stuff now more than ever, because that affects people in the communities. And when we talk about being local, it's every local across the country. It's not just here. I mean, it's everywhere. Everybody has to do that, and if we do that and we stay together, and hopefully, like you said, most importantly, be a student of history to know that let's not forget what we've learned during this. And I know that's a big learning lesson, but we can't. I know you going into next year, whatever, you will use this as a big teaching moment and growing from it, I'm sure, knowing how you think. And I think I'm thinking of ways now to do things 6 months from now, how we will be different as human beings and how we can grow from it. That's what we do as humans, if we're smart.
I agree.
Well,
I agree. Absolutely.
well, I won't keep you anymore, my friend. I appreciate you being on, but let's, I know for those people that are asking questions, they may not have the updated website if they're in the local area. You know, you're putting out some e-newsletters of information, but what's the best website they can go to if they are worried about their fifth grader or their student at Trickum, that they can, you know, see the news and updates from you guys?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our website's trickum.org. Very easy to find, trickum.org. And it's linked to all of our local information, but also linked to all of the district information, because our school district is doing a great job of leading and providing consistent message across the district. But trickum.org is the easiest and quickest way.
Okay. Well, Principal Ryan Queen, Trickum Middle School, you do a heck of a job, my friend, and I appreciate you taking time to come on Community Connections.
All right. Absolutely. Take care, Ryan.
All right, my friend. Thank you, Ryan. All right, there's been another Community Connections with Ryan Sauers. This is interviewed Principal Ryan Queen at Trickum. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time, folks. Thank you.